Welcome to this broadcast. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and while India is at the cusp of creating history, foreign media is busy peddling their own agenda. In a clear attempt to belittle our country, New York Times has today, in an article on Chandrayaan, has questioned our achievement and has unnecessarily linked it to Kashmir. The New York Times, in its latest article, has said that many feel that this is an attempt by India to shift focus from issues like the sharp fall in the economy and Kashmir. Well, so the foreign media, apart from not minding their own business, are trying to provoke India unnecessarily. A move, a feat, an achievement that should have been hailed as not only good for just the Indian subcontinent and India, is also something that should have been celebrated by the United States, a country who has spent billions of dollars trying to send things into space, and sometimes or rather 50% of the times they have been unsuccessful, considering their Apollo missions in the 70s and the 80s and running through to the 90s. But we will talk about this with our esteemed guests. And let me start by introducing Pathikrit Payne, who is a geostrategist, with me in the studio. With him, we have Mr. Ravi Gupta as well, who is a former DRDO scientist. Pathikrit, let me begin by asking you, why is the foreign media, in fact, diluting this entire mission which has been orchestrated by India? It is not only a precedent set for India, it is something that the world can aspire to be. Well, if you have to talk about India digressing from main issues, then why did not the New York Times or any other publication as such talk about China when they were sending their people to the moon, when they were sending missions to space? So why did not the New York Times or the Washington Post or the San Francisco Chronicle talk about what Russia has been doing in Chechnya, how they have in fact exploited their minorities? Why are they targeting India?
Vineet, I was not expecting anything else from some of these publications, and it's on the expected line that they have started, the typical questioning and saber rattling. So this is something not new. We have been facing it for several decades now. One of the reasons is that the Western world still suffers from a colonial legacy, wherein they think that they always have the primacy of deciding or innovating anything. And when countries like India actually does something which is innovative and path-breaking, they sometimes find it a little difficult to accept. That's one part of it. The second part is that, of course, today they have an unprecedented level of competition that they're facing from many of the countries of Asia, especially India, in the realm of launching of satellites. That's one. The other thing is that, it's not just about satellite launching. If you see some of the events that have happened in the last few months, starting from a very precisioned Balakot airstrike to our success in terms of having an anti-satellite missile capability, to this kind of very precisioned launch of this moon mission, and before that also the success in terms of the Mars mission. These are not something that they actually take with a lot of happiness and pride, unfortunately for them. Whereas in case of India, we have always taken pride whenever something great was achieved by the West. Now, other thing is that when they talk about Kashmir and all these things, I want to remind them, they had a disastrous economic crisis during 2008 and the subprime lending situation. So when the subprime lending crisis happened in US, did it stop NASA from launching of satellites or missions abroad, in the space? I don't think it happened that way. They actually continued with their space missions. Secondly, when it comes to issues like Kashmir, it's an internal affair of India. It is nobody's prerogative beyond India to decide what India would do so far as Kashmir is concerned. And India is big enough and resilient enough today to have multiple issues which they can handle easily, even while going ahead with economic and scientific innovation. Today, it's a path-breaking day for India. It's a momentous occasion. So there will be these pinpricks and cynicism and questions being raised by certain powerhouses of the yesteryears. So today, we should ignore all those criticism and simply, expect and wait with a lot of anticipation of the success that we are going to achieve today. Let us understand, let me be very clear about it, just as 1 billion hearts in India are praying for the success, be rest assured that there are countries across the world who are also praying for failure of India today. And this is the hard world where we have to live, but we will succeed. Over the last 50 years, we have faced so many hurdles. We were denied a cryogenic engine, we were denied a supercomputer, we made it. So today also we will face this criticism, but we will come out of all these things with brighter colors. And what's the charm of having success if there are no criticism and jealousy of some of our competitors? So I take it as, a reflection of the fact that we are going in the right direction.
Pathakrit, I don't think the United States is a competition anymore. We have executed this mission in less than $150 million. And the movie made by Christopher Nolan, Interstellar, which was about somebody going into the black hole, was made in $200 million. So I think US is much behind us when it comes to the competition in space exploration. Mr. Gupta, let me come to you. I know you're a man of science, but the New York Times, in classical colloquial language, they have become a wet blanket in the face of this huge achievement, which is going to be executed by ISRO tonight or early morning tomorrow. In fact, let me quote what the New York Times has said. They go on to say that Narendra Modi and his populist Bharatiya Janata Party welcome a distraction such as this amidst dismal job numbers, declining economic growth and conflict in Kashmir. Cast a stone if you haven't sinned. Let me quote the Bible over here. Right?
Right.
Should they be casting stones at us?
See, they are too important in the sense because of their wide coverage. BBC and New York Times. I consider them as a propaganda machinery. The Britishers won the second British-led allies. Important, very significant, contribution came from the propaganda. So they have built a very, very powerful propaganda machinery. But I think we need not worry about their propaganda. We have to be bothered more about it. We have to worry about something. Our people from our own country. See, we became slaves because there was traitors within us. And once again, we have to be careful from people within. Let us not bother about this New York Times and BBC because they have been doing this kind of propaganda in spite of their propaganda. This is not the first time that, as my co-panelist was telling, they have been doing it for all time and again.
They have a colonial hangover.
They have got a colonial hangover. They still consider that India is a country of snake charmers and the people riding the block carts. They are not able to digest. But I tell you, let us not get perturbed by it. Let us not get distracted by it. These people, they fully understand our strength. In fact, they understand our strength more than us. That is why they are against their propaganda is targeted to demean our successes. So that our own people don't see, they feel pride about our own success. My appeal to my countrymen is that believe in your own scientists, believe in your own people rather than believing in this kind of propaganda machinery which is against India. Not now, not 10 days, it has been against us for last few centuries.
Okay, Patrika, I know you want to come in. In fact, let me just get an opening comment from Yogesh Kumar Joshi, who's an astronomer. Yogesh, I can see you also have a miniature model of the Pragyan right on the table. We will talk about that. But first of all, I want you to respond to how the foreign media is in fact running from pillar to post in their jealousy in seeing India reach the moon, an area which they in fact could never reach before. And considering the kind of impediments that we have faced and the kind of problems we have still managed to do that. But here is the New York Times, who's in fact using all these problems against us.
So my comment would be like, we started with a step, like we thought of taking help from Russia in 2008, but by 2015, Russia cited their inability. Now we are up to a mission like where India has developed their own mission. Now India has shown its technical capability. So why not people will get jealous out of us, because we are doing something, we are going to achieve something which world has never done before. So, as the sir has said rightly, there have been several propagandas. They are still thinking that India is a land of snake charmers, but no, it is not. Although even they are still saying this thing when half of the population in their country is of Indians. right? Many of the technical people in their country are Indians, but still they are making this comment on India. Now this is something which I guess they should not do.
Well,
but
they
if
perhaps
are
are not
doing
happy about
this,
the reverse.
we are not happy.
They're not happy about the reverse brain drain. And Pathikrit,
absolutely.
you wanted to come in, but first,
Exactly,
let me also talk about the United States and how they dwell on conspiracy theories. In fact, the largest number of conspiracy theories can be found in the United States. It is said, and just give me a minute to explain this to you, that in the 16 and the 70s there was this space race between Russia and America, which bankrupted Russia because they always were trying to emulate what the United States was doing. But the conspiracy theory goes on to say, Pathikrit, that they never sent a man to the moon. They hired a director called Stanley Kubrick, who booked a Hollywood studio and in fact filmed all those astronauts landing on the moon. And there have been dozens of books which have been written about it. There have been dozen documentaries which have been made about it. In fact, some of these documentaries, Pathikrit, they are quite believable.
Yeah, Vineet, I have always wondered that if in the 1960s they could send a manned mission to moon, why did they never did it again? Well, they could have done it.
So the conspiracy theorists are right.
So that's a question I have. But secondly, one of the reasons why the West has been so successful in certain areas is because there has, as you rightly said, there has been a huge brain drain from India from 60s, 70s, 80s. People who were disgruntled with India. So they went somewhere else after educating themselves in India. And those people today, if they start taking pride in the idea of India and the achievements of India, then it becomes a major problem for these countries of the West because their resource base actually shrinks. For example, the CERN institute where the particle accelerator research is happening, there are 400 scientists of Indian origin in CERN alone. Now, if these kind of research becomes successful in India and we become a pioneer, I remember that statement in the mission, Mission Mangal movie, copy that, which was said by Akshay Kumar at the end. When we become a pioneer, it becomes very difficult for the West to actually then ask the educated and talented Indians to come to their country. And this is the same thing which happened in the realm of industry and entrepreneurship. Today you have the Flipkarts and so many other companies being created in India. In the 80s and the 70s, people left India. I mean, there are some who stayed behind and created the likes of Infosys and Wipro, and then it become a norm rather than an exception. So if that becomes a norm in the realm of scientific research also, it becomes a real challenge because the Americans don't do research. It is always the guys coming from India and other places who are putting the real effort in the places like NASA. So today when India is actually ending up creating major successes, not just in the realm of space, it becomes a problem for them. Now, secondly, when it comes to slowdowns, look, if you have an economy of $2.8 trillion, you would also have periodic slowdowns. It's a normal process. And I think we are capable enough to solve those problems on our own. We don't need a lecture from New York Times or Washington Post for that. These are all small things. If you have a small issue in economy, very temporary, does that mean that you stop your scientific innovations? Not at all. What will this do today, apart from the spillover positive effect in the industry in the long run? It is going to inspire a generation of Indians to take up fundamental research as a discourse rather than just becoming, programmers for some of the Western countries.
Absolutely.
That is something I am hoping that the next generation will take up.
And Mr. Gupta, let's also, rewind a little bit, to the mid-90s when Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister and we conducted those nuclear tests in Pokhran. Now, the Western world was, like they say, very peeved about the fact that a poor country was able to test nuclear weapons. And later on as well, in the middle of 2000, when we did try to explore space with our own resources, with our own talent and our own inbred technology, the Western world was in fact very jealous. This condescending tone that they've always had for India is in fact beginning to be silenced. Not because of, we talk a lot, not because we have articles published to counter what they write, but because success takes care of all your enemies.
Very good, very true.
Right?
Very true. And today also, tonight we will be succeeding and their mouths will be shut. But the matter of fact is that what is the real reason behind their propaganda? Why are they worried? See, you take the cost of Chandrayaan 2 or take the cost of Mangalyaan. It's a small fraction of the cost which America has been spending on their missions, similar missions.
Right.
And the output is much more. Whereas most of the Western missions, and as he was saying, even the Russian missions, they were out of a competition. That's good for nothing, because they have done it, we will also do it. But we have never done that. 1947, when our Vikram Sarabhai came back to India and started their space exploration kind of, setting up all these facilities with his own money. He, at that point of time, he said that there is no point in conducting scientific research unless they are able to solve the problem of a common man. So we have been doing it with a purpose. That is their biggest worry. Because doing it at a low cost, doing it with a purpose, with a greater output, where will they stand after 10 years or 20 years? They don't want a competitor to come in. Space is a big economic business. People are asking, why are we spending money? Well, we are investing the money in future. What we are going to get out of Chandrayaan is the resources for future.
Absolutely.
So that's why they are worried that India will come up as a strong competitor. Today, the entire economy of America is a knowledge-based economy.
Absolutely.
And if Indians are able to come up, they know our strength. They know our strength better than us. So they are worried that all the people who are today working in NASA and their defense departments and so many...
They might go back.
They will come back. Why would they stay there in America? They will come back to India and work for India. So that is their biggest worry. And there was not long ago, only a few centuries back, India was the world's most powerful economy. We were contributing to almost one-third of the world's GDP. They know our strengths. And the way we have been rising, they know that tomorrow once again we will rise, once again they will be contributing maximum to the world GDP, and they will be like what they think of us, maybe people, very poor people, not able to eat, nothing to properly dress up or find food. Perhaps they think that tomorrow they will end up in this manner. So that is their biggest worry. That's why they are creating all this propaganda. And they have been winning all this kind of things through propaganda only, as we pointed out about the moon mission.
Right.
See, there is no air, there is no atmosphere on the air. How come that flag was
fluttering? Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the conspiracy theorists are right, and Yogesh, we also have to acknowledge the fact that this mission goes beyond people, it goes beyond countries, it goes beyond agendas, and it goes beyond your leaning. If you're a left or you're a rightist, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, if you belong to the BJP or the Congress, this is a mission which is in fact going to be virtuous for all mankind. We still want to know, how the Big Bang Theory in fact involved, how the primordial soup, like they call it, how the evolution graph took place, and the place where the Chandrayaan, the Vikram, the lander is going to be going. That is going to be, in fact, the first time anybody has reached. For 4 billion years, there's not been, anybody who's been on that part of the universe, and not even the sun, like they say in Hindi. Jahan na gaye Ravi, wahan gaye Kavi. Even Kavis haven't gone to that part of the moon. But yet, you have, publications like the New York Times who are trivializing this issue. What do you make of it?
So
they should grow up, right?
Yes, they should. Actually, they should grow up. Like India is going to achieve something. India is going to a part of moon where nobody has gone, as you have said, right? Now that part, it actually contains much more wealth than we have ever expected from the moon. Right?
Please tell us, share with us what is at stake here.
Okay, so if I talk about the south pole of the moon, then it's the most cratered part, right? And it's the part which has been in the dark for so long, right? And some part of the south pole has never received sunlight. Now,
and correct me if I'm wrong, sorry for interjecting you, and this is also a part which has not been impacted by meteorites or comets.
It has been impacted by meteorites and comets most. Because it has been.
Okay.
Because there are so many craters. They are having more craters as compared to the North Pole, you can say.
Okay.
Right. Now, if there have been no meteorite impacts, there would have been no craters. Now, what we can get out from this, so as this part of moon is undisturbed, or it's an uncharted territory, right? So whatever minerals that we have found on near the equatorial belt, maybe something else we can get from moon, from the poles, right? Second, water can be there in the solid or maybe in the liquid form. We are not sure. We have done the studies with the orbiter that we sent in Chandrayaan 1, but this time we are sending a lander and the rover, right? So we can get much better proof for that. Then any element which is there, or we can also get the science of the origin and the evolution of moon, because still there are so many theories about the moon. Right, like even it has been 50 years that we are doing lunar exploration, but still we don't know that how actually the moon has evolved. What is its actual origin? Right, there are different theories for it. Right, so we will be getting a better idea for that. So these all are the findings that we can get just by landing at the South Pole. Again, it's a daring step. Why I'm saying it's a daring step? Because it's the landing site is in between just two big craters. One of them is almost 9 kilometers deep. Right. Now just imagine if a lander will be 12-degree more tilted. It can fall in any of those craters, right? So we are going to take a very daring step in the lunar exploration. Right. And again on an uncharted territory.
Absolutely, and very articulately explained. And Pathikrit, coming back to, the United States also must be thinking to itself, and this is perhaps a theory that we can also come up with, that they've had the maximum number of Nobel laureates every year. The Nobel Prize is announced, and you have so many professors from either Stanford or Berkeley or Harvard or any of the Ivy League universities coming forth and picking up the Nobel Prize for science or chemistry or discovering this, discovering that. But yet we are the ones who have executed this mission in the cheapest cost possible. That perhaps is not okay with them.
Vineet,
how else can we put it?
In spite of all the Nobel laureates, they still tend to patent the neem and the turmeric, about whose efficacy we knew for thousands of years. Yeah, garlic. Now, I'll tell you two things. First, talking about, every time they talk about the issue of poverty and people and why a poor country. First of all, we are not a poor country. We have an economy in terms of purchasing power parity. We are an $11 trillion economy today. In terms of real GDP, it's around 2.8. Nominal GDP, it's a $2.8 trillion economy. Now, I'll give you an example. In 2016, ISRO launched a satellite called SCATSat. In 1999, Odisha had a cyclone which resulted in casualties to the tune of 10,000 people who died. This year, when the similar kind of cyclone actually, Odisha faced similar kind of cyclone, almost a month before that, India knew that this cyclone is coming. So the kind of evacuation happened in a very professional manner. It resulted in the number of casualties in the same region reducing from 10,000 to less than 100. So that is what you achieve in terms of your investment in space. You end up saving lives of poor people. Secondly, when it comes to the issue of what is the implication of this for the mankind and not just for India. Moon is being seen as a future base station for deep space exploration.
Absolutely.
And when you are looking for those base stations, most of the base stations possibly might be either in the equatorial region or the southern region. Now, why this exploration is exploratory in nature? Look, 40 years ago, people had no idea how telecommunication would have completely altered the dimension of how we live today. And one of the major role that is played in all this is something called the rare earth minerals. For example, coltan. Now, if you can find some of those minerals in moon, now it's an exploratory part of it. Extraction can take time. It might take around 30-40 years time. But if you can find those possibly those, say, rare moon minerals, which can fundamentally alter the concept of metallurgy. It can have a very big impact in your aerospace, in your telecommunication industry, in your medication. Okay, so we are talking about quantum leap in terms of frontiers of technology. And this is not just for India. This is one part of the work that is being done by India for the mankind as a whole. Okay, for example, what SpaceX did in 2018, making it successful for the first stage rockets to come back after successfully putting a satellite in the orbit. Now, when you have reusable stage 1 rockets coming back, your cost of launching something comes down drastically. And if you can actually have a soft landing on moon and you institutionalize it, knowing that, because I'm sure part of this knowledge will be shared by all the major institutions, if not the entire knowledge. So these are very, very critical steps for mankind which can have a major impact over the next 30, 40 or 50 years. And this is where India is playing a key role, as almost quite a few thousand years back, the invention of the concept of zero fundamentally altered how the binary numbers on which the computers work today. So it is not being looked upon as merely a work in progress for ISRO alone. This is, astronomy has been a very critical part of India's sacred text, or we had,
and we invented it. We came up with
astronomers had a very critical respect in our society in the past. If you talk about our mythology and our books of the past. So this is something that we are doing without thinking about how the world will react. Okay, so it's not for the Americans or the British journals or newspapers. It is beyond their ability to comprehend what we are doing.
Right.
And that's why we should ignore
Don't
them.
mean to interject, but since you did mention astronomy, perhaps India is the only country where planets decide your fate and future. So we have every right to reach to them first than any other country, right?
Absolutely.
Let me correct you a little bit. The astrology, as per our text, Vedic astrology, it also tells that these planets, they are not the causative factors. Because people make fun of us, that how come moon is affecting. No, moon is not affecting. They use the positions of these planets vis-a-vis a particular event to determine what is going to happen. There is a shlok, I don't remember it exactly, which says that the planets are not causative factors. They are the one which are indicators. It's a tool for studying what is going to happen. And as a proof, you can say, you can pick up, there is a panchang, there is something called ephemeris in Western world, we call it panchang. If you just pick up any of good panchang, every fortnight you will find at the bottom, it's written what will be the weather in that particular region. And you will find that to a great accuracy, this is true.
It is true.
It's true.
Right. So it's a science, in fact. And
science,
I'm only going to extend upon the point that you made, that the world should look at this particular achievement by India not only in silos, but something that can benefit most of these countries who are in fact putting their foot in their mouth, including China, Russia, the UK and the United States. Because, Mr. Gupta, even if we talk about helium-3, there is a possibility we could discover that on the moon. And considering the way we are exploiting the natural resources of Mother Earth, using coal and other minerals to generate electricity, helium-3 could perhaps be a fuel of the future. And that is perhaps what we have at stake here.
Yes, it is not only the fuel of future, it is also a clean fuel.
Clean fuel.
See, you have, on one hand, you have been having the fossil fuels, the coal and the crude oil, which are now notorious for creating pollution.
Absolutely.
Come back to nuclear energy, the fission-based nuclear reactors, they also generate a lot of pollutants in the form of nuclear waste and a lot of radiation. And any accident happening, it is a disastrous effect. Now, helium-3 per se, the root is the fusion reactor. You have, what you end up is getting only protons and neutral helium. Helium-3 gets converted to helium-4, the normal helium, and you get a proton. There is no other waste, there is not much of radiation, and there is nothing left to be stored as a nuclear waste. So, helium-3 is going to be a very, very clean and safe fuel for almost unlimited energy, fusion energy. That is one aspect. But moon is not, going to moon, that is not the only resource. One aspect was covered by micropanelists, the kind of rare minerals.
Correct.
Another aspect is water. Now, people generally are thinking that water is going to be used for human beings who will go and settle over there. No, that is only one small aspect of it. Water as such is the fuel for future. When you are traveling in space, the only way to move forward is that you throw something backward. Presently, conventionally, what you are doing, that you burn some kind of explosives, the pressure is generated, and the products, the product of this combustion, they are thrown back so that your rocket moves forward.
Correct, correct.
Now, how do you use water? Water is neutral, water is safe, very safe to store, so no problem. But water, when you heat it at very, very high temperatures using microwaves, it converts into plasma. That means water is converted into ions. And this is called a kind of quasi-plasma because it is having both positively charged ions as well as negatively charged ions. These ions can be accelerated using the electromagnetic field and accelerated to very, very high velocities. As a result, the efficiency of a water plasma based rocket is much higher, much higher. You can take it to much higher velocities also.
Right. So just hold on to that thought. It's time for us to slip into a short break, but we will be back with more to talk about on this particular debate. Stay tuned.